Central Minnesota Sports Hub. It's the Morning Sports Desk, presented by Wadena's Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade. Available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and streaming on YouTube.
Morning Sports Desk, powered by Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena. I'm CJ Baumgartner, Corey Tackman over there. Corey, it's a Friday, the 31st of January. We are getting ready to wrap up another week, the last day of January, and then we roll into February, which, as we've mentioned on previous episodes, things start really ramping up here high school sports-wise. But in January, your last game of the month, you were at the Nest for some boys basketball.
Yeah, I got to see two pretty nice teams. One team in particular was very good. Staples-Motley Cardinals boys hosted the Pequot Lakes Patriots. According to the QRF, the Patriots are ranked 12th in Class 2A boys basketball. They are the 2 seed in Section 7AA behind a very, very good ESCO team. By the way, those two teams play next week, if I'm not mistaken, maybe on Tuesday. Just a dynamic game coming forward. But Pequot Lakes is really nice. We're down a couple of guys because of injuries, including their starting point guard. But man, they can kind of do it all. They can all shoot. They can all handle. They're long and lanky and strong. They'll man you up defense. They'll zone you up defense. They'll full court pressure you, zone defense, and then drop into that zone. They're a really nice basketball team. The final score escapes me. I can't remember what it was. The Patriots pretty much controlled it from the opening tip, and as was honestly to kind of be expected, right? That I know there's probably lots of problems with the QRF out there in the world, but in my experience anyway, the QRF is rarely wrong. And there's a pretty stark difference in 7AA. I mentioned ESCO number 1, Pequot Lakes is number 2, Staples-Motley is number 4 in the section. But there's a pretty significant drop off between number 2 and then the 3 and 4 and 5 spots. So there's a pretty big gap for someone to kind of separate themselves as far as a 3 seed goes in that section. And the QRF was just not wrong last night, I guess is the basic gist of that. It's not like Staples-Motley played poorly because they're poor at basketball. It's because Pequot Lakes does that to you. So they just dominated. They led from just after the opening tip to the final buzzer and took care of business on the road in a non-conference game last night from the Nest.
That Section 7AA in boys and girls basketball is so fun. We talked about the girls basketball yesterday, but for boys too, just those top few teams at the section, it's going to be a fun one. I believe they play those at Romano Gym at UMD for the section title. And that's going to be a fun one to watch in about a month and a half. That's going to be really cool.
Yep.
Some other stuff going on. We had a match last night in wrestling between Barnesville and Wadena Deer Creek. The Wolverines came away with a victory in that one. Talked with Coach Wallum a little bit for the Wolverines Weekly Coaches Show. Felt good about his team. They starting to stack up some wins here late in the season. They're 9-9 as a team, and their goal was to get to 11 wins. And they have a quad next week where they have a chance to try and get to that season goal. So congratulations to Wadena Deer Creek. They got the win last night over Barnesville. And
nice.
Then we have another Wadena Deer Creek event on KWAD tonight as the hockey team hosts Mora at the Wadena Ice Arena, 6:40 pregame, 7 o'clock puck drop, and that will be again on KWAD 101.7 FM and AM920. Also streaming online at wadenaradio.com/KWAD. Jamie Pettit just picked up the gear. He's ready to roll. Him and Scott Woods will be on the call tonight on KWAD. You can, as always, find that full broadcast schedule online at WDCradio.com. Corey, we have some state sports stuff to talk about, including the fact that Marc-Andre Fleury had what may be the most talked about game of his farewell season. We also have a really cool moment at the Timberwolves game last night for a couple different reasons. And we have our Mount Rushmore Friday, where we talk about some Minnesota sports related stuff. That's all coming up. But first, we better give a shout out to the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena. Corey, I was just there yesterday getting a little food. Amazing. Ate way too much, but that's okay. Like, I didn't need to eat the rest of the day. I went there for lunch, loaded up. It was all good. That's how good it is there. Got a little ice cream and little cookie pizza, put them together. I mean, it's great. Got to walk through and talk with Zach over there at the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena, and he's real excited. They got some new stuff to announce in the coming weeks about kind of some renovations that they're doing in the building related to the FunZone Arcade and some of their meeting rooms and stuff like that. More information to come on that in the coming weeks. But Corey, why don't you just tell us what else is going on at the Pizza Ranch?
Dine, earn, and repeat with the Pizza Ranch Rewards app. Download that app and enjoy the convenience of the check-in feature. Check your rewards balance and easily order your favorites through Pizza Ranch online ordering. And once you sign into the app, you're automatically signed into Pizza Ranch online ordering when you tap that start order on the app. You download the app, and by the way, on Wednesdays, double points day with the Pizza Ranch. So download that app, and then that way you can bring Pizza Ranch with you wherever you go. The Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade, what a stop for the weekend if you're looking for something to do. Bringing us again today, the Morning Sports Desk.
All right, Corey. So we have some Minnesota state sports related stuff. Let's start off with the Minnesota Wild. Zeke was here yesterday talking about Marc-Andre Fleury potentially pulling off the biggest prank in NHL history. If he does that, it's going to ruin this moment because it was great last night. Marc-Andre Fleury, Hall of Fame goalie from Montreal, and he got to go to his hometown last night for the final time in his career, unless both teams are in the Stanley Cup Finals, and he had a shutout. 4-0, he stood on his head, as they say in hockey, and gave the Wild a 4-0 win. And they were able to, once again, kind of start to get things back on track after going through the injury bug. But Marc-Andre Fleury putting together a performance for the ages, Corey. We have our group chat with Zeke, and he mentioned he teared up a little bit seeing that performance.
Yeah, it was really cool. As the hometown team celebrated the return of the hometown hero, it was really cool. He actually became, in that game, the first player in NHL history to record a shutout as a teenager and a 40-year-old.
Insane
Career for Marc-Andre Fleury, which we all knew. But to be able to go there and think about what hockey means to that city, quite a bit, I would imagine. And for them to appreciate what he's done as a professional over the years was pretty cool.
Yeah, super cool to see that moment, and just for him to have this throughout the final year of his career, and again to do these final moments is impressive. And I'm not sure what they gave him, if he got anything. He didn't get the rocking chair of broken bats, but there's got to be something. What would you give somebody like that in Montreal?
Poutine,
probably, and
a Labatt's Blue.
Yeah, there you go. Actually, that's done. I think that was actually given to him in a to-go container on the way for the bus. So that's good. That's all set. Minnesota Timberwolves, Corey, second night of a back-to-back. We mentioned great win, gutsy win, emotional win, a little bit, against Phoenix on Wednesday night. And now it's the second night of a back-to-back, both games on the road. You win from Phoenix up to Utah to play a Jazz team that is 10-35 going into the game. And we said, if the Wolves are getting serious, they'll win this game, no problem. And Corey, they didn't necessarily have the best start, but they were just so much better than the Jazz that it didn't really matter. They still ended up winning by double digits. Bench players were in the fourth quarter, including Joe Ingles making his return to the Delta Center in Utah. Of course, was on those teams with Gobert and Conley and a couple of those other guys who made the Utah Jazz a really fun team just a handful of years ago. He made his triumphant return, and that place was quiet almost all game. But when Ingles came in, that place, the lid was about to blow off. It was crazy.
It erupted. He's the franchise leader in 3-pointers for the Utah Jazz, and they just really love him. I mean, it's the same story basically that we just told about Marc-Andre Fleury. The place went bananas when he checked in, and then somebody cast up one of the worst 3-point attempts for the Timberwolves I've ever seen in my life. Who was that? Was that Minot? Who I've never seen a pro airball a 3-pointer worse than he airballed that 3-pointer.
Oh, I think I know which one you're talking about. Was it Dillingham?
It didn't trickle out of bounds. It rifled straight out of bounds. The ref blew the whistle, and the fans who were already cheering for Ingles, who was sitting at the scorer's table, somehow got even louder as he checked in. Yeah, it was a cool moment for him too. I would imagine that was pretty neat to experience.
Yeah, that's a fan base that really appreciated what he did for them, and Ant really appreciated that moment. Like, he saw that he was going in the game, and he like doesn't even take the sweatsuit off. He's just like walking to the bench or like an old man walking, and he just has everything on. He's just waiting, and Ant is sitting there with a towel, like jumping up in the air. Like, it was fun to get to see him go in, and everybody was waiting for him to get a point because Corey, he has not scored a point for the Minnesota Timberwolves yet this year. And this is the longest somebody has ever gone in a Timberwolves uniform minutes wise without scoring their first point for the team. So now part of me just kind of wants to hope he never scores a point.
That'd be awesome.
All season long. He went in, and that Utah crowd was begging for him to get a shot. And the Wolves were, it's like, you know, when the foreign exchange student comes in at the end of a JV blowout and everybody's just trying to get him the ball. That's what that basically was. And Lauri Markkanen, first of all, the Jazz had all 5 of their starters out there against the Iowa Wolves. Like, it was all G League guys and Joe Ingles on the floor. And yet they had all their, like, Lauri Markkanen's out there, Sexton's out there, like some of these guys. Markkanen was straight up guarding Ingles. Like, he was in his face. He was like, you are not doing anything. I am not letting you score on me and being on Sports Center all day tomorrow. That's not what's about to happen.
I can hardly blame him, but a cool moment for Joe.
Yeah, the Utah crowd was about to turn on their own team, not because they got blown out by 30 against the Wolves, because they weren't going to let Joe Ingles get a basket for the opponent.
You lost by 28. Like, you can't let Joe have a layup.
Right. Your coach is leaving you in a blowout.
You can't get lazy so he can have a backdoor cut for a layup. Come on.
No, hustle, hit, never quit. That's what we're going with here in this one. All right, fine, you tryhards. You deserve to be in the position you're in. 10-36.
That was a really important win, I thought, for the Timberwolves. We talked about it a couple of days ago. We talked about it again yesterday. We knew they were going to gear up to play Phoenix. How was this team who struggles with maturity and getting ready for important games? How is a team who got winded in the playoffs last year and was not physically fit enough for a deep playoff run? How are they going to do it? Well, one of the ways you get yourself in shape is by trying really hard on back-to-back. So there's a number of Timberwolves social media posters who are like, this is exactly what the Timberwolves needed to do. Ant needed to try hard from front to finish. That's how you start getting yourself in shape for the end of the season and late season runs. And then it's just a really professional win. It's a mature professional win for a Timberwolves team who up to this point in the season hasn't done a lot of mature and professional things.
Let's take a look quick at the Western Conference standings right now. So the Oklahoma City Thunder at 37-9. The Rockets are at 32-15. The Grizzlies are at 32-16. Those 3 teams are kind of locked themselves in. They're going to jockey for position here, but they're pretty much that top 3, unless something changes here over the course of a season. That looks kind of to be the case. And then you get the 4 through like 8 teams. I'll leave the Mavericks out here because they're so hurt. But you have the Nuggets, the Lakers, the Clippers, and now the Wolves, because they've won 5 games in a row, have slingshotted themselves back into this position. Best winning percentage of the season so far. And they are now just a half game back of the Clippers. And I believe they have the tiebreaker over them. They are just a game back of the Lakers and are just a game and a half back of the Nuggets. So if the Wolves, again, they're still off February, March, and a little bit of April in the regular season. So there's still plenty of time for all this to change. But if you're the Timberwolves, that, you know, you've been playing in the play-in game most of the season. But after this week, and you have a chance to stack a couple more on, you can start to be like, okay, no, actually, we're in like the conversation of like the 4 through 6 seeds, which is so advantageous to avoid the play-in. because of the emotional wins that you have to take just to make sure that you get in the playoffs. And then once you do that, you have to face two of the best teams in the Western Conference. Not that it's not doable, but that's a lot. If you can avoid that and play a much more easier first round matchup, that would help out a lot, I think. But that's kind of where the Timberwolves are sitting at right now. Looking at their upcoming schedule, they play the Wizards tomorrow. I'm going to be at that game. That'll be fun to see them either choke or blow out a bad team. I'm ready for either scenario. The other one is that they play the Kings on Monday night at home. They start a nice little 5-game homestand here. So they play the Wizards, the Kings, and
the
then
Kings without De'Aaron Fox.
Exactly. That'll be after the trade deadline. So trade deadline on the 2nd of February. Did I read that right? Something like that. So that's coming up. You have the Bulls at home. Then you have the Rockets, who are tough, but I think the Wolves match up well with them. And then you have Portland. And then you end that 5-game homestand, and then you play the Cavs, the Bucks, the Thunder, the Rockets, the Thunder, the Lakers. And then you have a rough stretch kind of through the rest of February. But this is the chance to start stacking wins on top of each other to build you that buffer. And this team is doing that.
Yeah. And when you look at the standings, with the Clippers and Lakers right in front of you, those two teams are always a stiff breeze away from losing 1 to 3 of their best players. We're getting to the point of the season where LeBron is just going to find a way to take a little time, whether that means effort wise or an ankle tweak, and then they'll keep him out for 2 weeks just to refresh him for a stretch run. We're getting close to that. That's just going to happen. You just never know with Kawhi. James Harden is infamously untrustworthy. So there's just some Denver you can trust because Jokic. So jumping from that 7 spot up to that 4 spot is absolutely unequivocally in play, and that should be the goal here.
Not only that, it would mean that you'd have home court advantage through the first round of a playoff series, which would also be huge if you're going to play in LA Lakers or Clippers or something like that. You don't want to go to the Inuit Dome. Don't want to go there with the way the Clippers have that set up.
The what's it called?
The Inuit Dome or something like that? Like Inuit TurboTax or something like that? Intuit, whatever.
And whatever it is.
Whatever it is. Some insert corporate sponsorship.
It's a cool stadium.
It's a
cool arena. The wall is neat and all that stuff. But again, they're a stiff breeze from Kawhi being done for the year.
We're missing 2 months.
And a strip club away from James Harden being 25 pounds heavier,
One basket of chicken wings away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any and all moments.
Anthony Davis could get hurt on a moment's notice. There's a lot of stuff that
40.
Right, exactly. Bronny James getting significant minutes for the Lakers. Anything. There's a lot of factors in play there. The other thing about speaking of young players for the Wolves last night, there was at one point on the floor, you had some kind of combination of Minot. You also had Jalen Clark, who's been getting some minutes for the Wolves coming up from Iowa. You had Rob Dillingham on the floor, and then I think it was Garza, and then maybe McDaniels or something like that on the floor. Some kind of sicko combination of this is just all the young kids on the floor at the same time. And it's really kind of interesting because the Wolves were a team, everybody rightfully got concerned when you trade away all those first round picks for Gobert. How are you going to build your future? How are you going to build this out? The way some of those young guys played made you kind of hopeful that, I don't know how long Nickeil Alexander-Walker is going to be a Timberwolf or Naz Reid or however long with some of those contracts. But to see some of the guys you have coming down the pipe, I know it's against Utah, and this was the game to kind of get them in and get them some minutes. But Jalen Clark played a really important game last night and against Phoenix. Dillingham has been starting to come into his own more and more and getting more confident on the floor as a floor general. When he gets going on the 3-point, that looks nice. And also his finishing he's really not quite going right to the rim, but his floating layups he's just been really good with that. So I think overall it's really fascinating, not just to see that Ant's playing better, Gobert is playing better, McDaniels is finding more offense, Nickeil Alexander-Walker has been on fire. Those, they're important. But like we talked about, the Wolves needed depth this year more than anything. And to see some of those young guys at least start to carve out roles for themselves is at least an encouraging sign for that team.
This team has been building towards 2026 and 2027 for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of been a part of the plan the whole time. Last year opened up a window that I don't think they were necessarily prepared for, franchise-wise, although that's why you went and got a Rudy Gobert to help with that. That's why Gobert is still there and to help with that. But yeah, it's weird. It's a weird thing running a sports team. You have to, if the opportunity is in front of you, you have to take advantage of it. You just have to, while constantly keeping one eye on what do the next 5 years look like. Mm-hmm. How do we develop this? Because no one's paying Rudy whatever Rudy's getting paid right now. Again, it's just not happening.
Right.
God, he's been awesome.
His age and everything, especially.
It's just not happening again. So, it's just interesting that the hard part of running a franchise, I think, is the exact situation that the Timberwolves are in. Anthony Edwards excelled so quickly. They opened up a window they weren't prepared to have opened that you have to take advantage of.
Right.
But you also have to be like, where are we going to be in 3 years? Where are we going to be in 7 years?
How do we adjust? And it's part of the reason you trade Cat. How do we make sure we have some financial flexibility to do some of this stuff?
And how do we do everything we can to make sure Ant stays?
Right, exactly.
Everything we can to make sure he stays.
Last note on the game, Julius Randle left 10 minutes in they said it was a groin injury when he left. I don't believe that's what it was officially diagnosed as, but he did leave the game and didn't come back. So his status TBD. The other thing about Randle, he has an opt-in after this season, and it'll be interesting to see if the Wolves end up trading him at some point because of that opt-in to avoid that salary-wise, or if, this is a guy that played with Finch before in New Orleans when Finch was an assistant. They end up, it's the maybe he'll work for us meme from Arrested Development. Like, do they believe in that? That'll be an interesting one to see too, because he's almost 100% where whatever team he's on going to opt back in for the money that he's going to get next year.
I like to listen to Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo, and Ryan Russillo has a joke about opt-ins where he just always goes, I wonder if he'll take it. Because they always take it. Because it'd be stupid not to. It's like so much
Kevin
money.
Durant in your prime.
Yeah.
Taking it.
Yeah. I wonder if he's going to opt in for that. I wonder if he's going to opt in for that year with more money than most of us will make in a lifetime.
Yeah. Just in. That's all I got to do. Do I have to mail? Do I have to sign a form? And do I just need to verbally, like Michael Scott, I declare I opt in.
You just like an Instagram post on social media, like, oh, Julius is back. Okay.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That's all it takes. Okay. Let's wrap up the show here by talking about Mount Rushmore. We did this a little bit and then kind of got away from it, but now let's make sure that we do it today. The Mount Rushmore Friday of Minnesota sports. We talked about Joe Ingles and the impact he had on the Jazz and the impact he had for the Wolves last night. But let's go Minnesota sports bench guys. Who's your Mount Rushmore Minnesota sports bench guys? Anybody in Minnesota sports, and I'm not talking about like Naz Reid, like a sixth man, like a guy who's legitimately a very nice player. Who's a guy that in all likelihood is good, but not that great, but also is just great. You'll always really appreciate what that guy did for you.
Eliminate Derrick Rose, for example, when he came off the bench.
Right, exactly. Because we're talking about the Joe Ingles type, where it's when they check into the game, everybody's freaking out.
Well, it's hard because I wasn't necessarily prepared for this until you told me right before we went on, which is fine because it's fun. It's fun to think of these things. The first name that came to my mind was Mark Madsen. Now, he's not Joe Ingles' bench end of the bench. Madsen played real minutes, and everybody I thought of played real minutes for whatever Minnesota sports team I picked them for. Madsen was a bona fide top 8 guy in the league for or on his whatever team. He was a rotation guy for every team he ever played for, but I've never heard anybody not like Mark Madsen and just say the best things about that guy ever. So Mark Madsen was the first name I thought of. What do you think? Is that a decent start?
I think that's a good start. All right, I'm going to go. Do you want to just get yours off, or do you want to kind of alternate?
Let's alternate in case we have thoughts, and then I can scratch off a name if I have to, if you come up with one too.
All right, I'm going to go Timberwolves. This is a bit controversial, but I think this counts. Kevin Garnett, the second time.
No, you set this up so you could cherry pick KG in his triumphant return.
Yeah, that was part of it. He was able to come back. I still think about that game when they played the Clippers and they just blew them out of the water. That team only won like 20 games, and the Clippers were a legit, like, nice finals contender, and they just blew them out of the water at the Target Center. And that dude, that like chubby guy, took his shirt off and started dancing because he had Kevin Garnett painted on it, and KG like did the little like towards him, and Garnett like bought a bunch of fans tickets and stuff like that. That was really fun. It's a shame that they ruined any kind of goodwill Garnett was trying to build with the franchise. Wonder whose fault that was. And he came back, and the whole point was Flip was back. You had Carl, you had Wiggins, you had Zach LaVine at the time, and you were like, Kevin Garnett is the perfect guy to come in and mentor this group and like give them their start, kind of end Garnett's career and move on and whatever. So I'm going to go Kevin Garnett as my Mount Rushmore, mainly because the Wolves don't really have a ton of guys who fit in this role because they've mostly just been bad. So whatever. But Garnett to Electric Boogaloo, I think gets my spot.
I think that's a really hard cheat on your part. I'm going to allow it. But depending on how the rest of these names go, that might have to just be an honorable mention one.
Okay. Because I mean, he only
franchise's greatest player.
Yeah, but on the second turn, he averaged like 2 a game.
No, I understand, but that doesn't.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna give it to you, but I don't like it.
All right, who do you have?
My next one again is a guy who played like fairly significantly and arguably was a starter for this franchise. As the team's fourth outfielder. He just started every day replacing somebody else. And it's Lou Ford.
Lou.
I don't think any more explanation needs to be said for what Lou Ford meant to Twins fans.
Lou Ford. Okay, how about this one? Mike Redmond.
Mike Redmond was on my list also.
There we go. Look at us. Mike Redmond. Everything, like he's everything that a backup should represent, especially a backup catcher. He's got a name, Mike Redmond. He looks like he's going to be putting shingles up on somebody's roof after the game with his pants hanging down as he's bending over. He's a guy that did batting practice naked. He was a World Series champion with the Florida Marlins in the early 2000s. So he is a guy who actually had some pedigree a little bit. I mean, he was on the team. He wasn't like a key factor, but he was there. And that's, I mean, everything about it. Mike Redmond, the smell him or whatever his thing was. Any kind of hit he got was a miracle. The triple he got in 2009, where Bramer and Blyleven are just laughing the entire time he's running around the bases. It's perfect. It's everything that it represents.
Yeah, no, I love Mike Redmond. That he was exactly in that era, exactly what good teams needed out of a backup catcher. I mean, it's always fun to go back and make fun of Gardy that he would just slot Redmond into the 3 slot.
Wow, but there take Morno out of his rhythm.
There were many stages of a season or two where Redmond was hitting 300 plus. It's, he wasn't Ken Griffey Jr. out of the 3 slot, but he was on base and putting the ball in play constantly. It was a different era of baseball. It certainly wouldn't make sense today to do that. It barely made sense then to do, but like for that era of baseball and what you needed out of backup catcher and another guy who can just be like a club, like you said, the naked batting practice stuff. I mean, that's stuff of legend. Some of that stuff is like what pulled those teams out of funks and got them back to their winning ways to go on to win a division or whatever. So I love Mike Redmond. I hate that you said it because I don't know that I can come up with a fourth name. The third name on my list, I think you'll have cursory knowledge of, legendary knowledge of, I don't know how well you actually remember him, is Vikings wide receiver Chris Walsh.
Yeah, it's all secondary.
He was the quintessential third receiver, your third down receiver. He was the guy who would come in and he'd run the slant route right over the middle, knowing that his life was on the line. He was the wedge breaker on special teams. He was an absolute menace. If you stereotype today white wide receivers in the NFL, he was the stereotype of that guy. He was the toughest guy in the field. He was fast enough. He did everything you asked him to do. And if you threw the ball his way, he was going to catch it and get the first down and limp off the field and come back out on the next third down and make another catch to have to limp off the field again. Vikings fans adored Chris Walsh.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect. I think that works. Here's a Vikings one. And again, it's such a tough line with football to kind of go like, because if a guy's a bench guy, you really don't hear about him much. There's just so much going on in an NFL season that guys, if you're just not good, you don't get in. So, do you think about like a Sean Hill or something? That's not my answer, but a guy like Sean Hill was talked about. He was there. He had an impact with Teddy and all that kind of stuff. But he just didn't really do anything. So it's also hard to tell. There's also no real legend. So I'm going to go this again. I'm kind of towing a line here, but how about Joe Webb? Does Joe Webb get included on this list, or did he do too much?
I disagree completely. That guy sucked.
The fan base adored him though.
No, they didn't.
They adored him.
No, they didn't. 4 people liked him and were loud about it. I disagree. That dude was awful.
He had the one Sunday night game that was played on a Tuesday night against the Eagles, and when he out Michael Vick.
Cool.
But that's what I'm saying. He did
a moment. That's fine. I don't think
Vikings fans talked about him all the time, and then he started a playoff game in Green Bay, and everybody shut up.
Yeah, I don't think they did though. I don't think they did. I think a select minority were loud about it. I don't remember that at all. My friends we were not clamoring for Joe Webb. I can promise.
Okay, this maybe is just a cultural thing because everybody I knew, Vikings fan wise, was clamoring for Joe Webb.
No, you guys were in 6th grade. That doesn't count.
Technically, we were in the 8th grade, but yes, it was more than that. We had teachers and people I would come across in public. Everybody wanted Joe Webb.
That's CJ. I hate that. That's your worst answer, man.
I needed a Viking. I told you this was tough with the NFL.
It is. It's really hard with the NFL. I mean, it took me a minute to get to Chris Walsh too. And I don't know, gosh, I don't know who else because you could maybe go with you took Mike Redmond. So I'm trying to brainstorm in the moment here.
He's like the archetype for this. So it's you got to figure.
He's really great. But can you go with Marcus Sherrills, who was pretty beloved as a Viking, but he was their starter. He was their starting return man. So I don't know. He was a backup, last on the depth chart for everything else.
He was excited when he came out to play corner when everybody was hurt. Everybody's like, yeah.
That was bad news. But so, does he fit into that mix?
Do you consider a Johnny Munt on the?
Yeah, I mean that's again, yeah, I don't know what the right answer is here for this. You could even look at oh gosh, now the name just slipped my brain. Who was it? Oh, Fred Hoiberg.
Yeah.
Fred Hoiberg came off the bench, but he was effectively their 6th man,
right?
7th man that year and broke all kinds of shooting percentage records in the league that year. He was lights out good. So Fred Hoiberg, right. I think, is probably cutting it a little too close. Mm-hmm. That the Wolves don't have, to my memory, a Taco Fall kind of guy riding on the end of the bench where everybody gets.
You could say maybe Luka Garza.
Luka's probably the next best answer here. Can I snipe that one for my last?
Yes.
I think Timberwolves fans love when Luka gets in.
Right. Well, and plus he played he's the classic, he was really great in college. Everybody talked about him. He was a collegiate player of the year, grinded for a year or two in Iowa, came up, And of course, he played at the University of Iowa. So there's a lot of Timberwolves fans who also cheer for the University of Iowa.
Yeah.
And then he played in Iowa. Like, they got to keep watching him and kind of keep getting enamored with him. He developed into a nice.
He's a hometown Iowa. People from Iowa are Timberwolves fans.
Right. Exactly.
He's a hometown player.
Exactly. And he's developed his offensive game to at least be like his offensive game is fine. I think in the NBA, it's his defense that of course has been the issue. And somebody said, if you combine Luka Garza and Rudy Gobert, you'd have one of the most effective players on the planet. And I was like, I'm pretty sure you're just describing Jokic, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, that's exactly who you're describing.
All right. I got my last one here. It's a Minnesota Timberwolves one. And I'm trying to think here. But again, this maybe is towing the line. It's tough. How about Taj Gibson? Was he too impactful?
I think he started.
He did a little towards the end because I think it was like post Butler, wasn't it?
I mean, he came in. I think he was in with Butler. I'm pretty sure it was like, because it was the Minnesota Bulls. It was Taj and Butler and Derrick Rose were all on that same team. I think Taj started.
He might have started.
All you've done is make up your own game and break every single rule.
I could just list Twins players, but I tried to like go around the spectrum because all I could think of are just backup catchers.
Who are other backup catchers that Twins fans adore?
Drew Butera had a little bit of a run because of the Sal Butera connection.
Oh, I know one. I'm an idiot. No, you said backup catcher.
I know one. I think we're both thinking the same thing.
It's the turtle.
It's Astudillo. Duh.
That's the last answer.
That's the last one. Yeah.
How do we forget about Williams?
How could we forget about the turtle, man? How can we forget? He has the story of legends, right? The same way Mike Redmond had the naked batting practice. Astudillo came in from Venezuela a little bit late because of issues with his visa. He got into spring training a week late, went to Paul Molitor's office, showed a video of him in some winter ball league in Latin America, robbing a home run in center field, and went, I can play outfield too, and just walked away. like
he really could do everything. Not well professionally, at the highest level professionally, but that is Williams Astudillo is the guy that every high school coach wants their players to be.
Right.
I need you to be able to do everything at a moment's notice. Can you do that? And Williams is like, yeah, bro, put me in, coach.
Yeah, of course. I'll do it. Yeah, I'm trying to think of some of the other Twins to kind of get. Catcher's just the easiest one because backup catchers are almost always vibes guys.
They have to be. It's their life's mission.
Exactly. You have to deal with pitchers. You have to be just kind of an easygoing.
Well, and it's hard. Like, can you pick bullpen guys here? Like, I don't think you can pick a closer, right?
You can pick like a low leverage bullpen guy, like somebody who kind of came in every once in a while.
Jesse Crane or JC Romero or Matt Guerrero. Twins fans really liked those guys, but Matt
Guerrero was the setup guy. So was Crane was the 7th inning, Guerrero was the 8th, and Nathan was the 9th.
More bullpen innings that year than Matt Guerrero. So I don't know if that counts. I don't know.
Right. It's such a fascinating.
We like Romo. We like Sergio Romo.
Yeah, but he was he was at times their most impactful.
Correct. Receiver. There's Timberwolves players I know we're missing.
There's got to be some. I mean, when the team was bad, just take your pick.
I think we like Matt LeCroy in hindsight. I don't know that we loved him in the moment.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think we loved him. I think he was fine, whatever, but it was very he wasn't beloved like some of these.
What about Twins Hall of Famer Corey Koski?
No, he was a starter. He was the starting third base. This is not that.
No,
dude.
I'm saying we think of him a lot more now because he stayed and played town ball, and now he's in the Twins Hall of Fame, and
Well, then that shows you how good he was.
Right. No, I'm saying for the beloved in the moment versus now.
Sure. Yeah. I think, but Corey Koski was good and he remains beloved. Matt LeCroy got pulled in the middle of an inning when he played for Washington because he couldn't make a throw to second base and made his coach cry in the post-game press conference because he felt so bad as a professional baseball player that he
forgetting about that.
To a former player. Matt LeCroy was not real great at baseball. But he's he's the guy you want to play slow pitch softball with.
Right. I mean, this guy's a starter, but like, I'm just thinking of random Timberwolves. Like, you got like your JJ Bareas, like that guy had a run for a little bit, but he wasn't like super. I can't remember how popular he was.
I mean, he would go immediately on most popular Maverick of all time.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know that he fits that for the Timberwolves, even though Timberwolves liked him.
Timberwolves fans didn't really like Luol Deng, but that's pretty much what he was.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even, Troy Hudson, he was a 6th man, so that doesn't count. There's guys there,
they're from Joe Ingles to Naz Reid. They kind of go everywhere on the spectrum.
Right. And it's easier in basketball too to pick these guys because they don't play.
What about Jake Layman?
What about him?
Jake Layman, how many minutes do you get tonight?
What about Jake Layman? No, I think those are good. I think those are good answers. It's that guy. It's the 10th man in the rotation who gets minutes, but that's it. He's not a scrub. He gets minutes, but that's it.
Yeah, he maximizes the 2 minutes a game he plays.
Right.
But fans are gonna be real perplexed. Like Minot came in for like 12 seconds and got subbed out, and everybody freaked out. And it was like literally he was on the floor for 12 seconds of game time.
Yeah.
Sub back out, and it's like, you guys, he's one of the last guys on the bench. That is your role.
Yeah. Yeah, he came in because they were going to take a TV timeout. She played 12 seconds of game time, and it was enough to give McDaniels 12 seconds of game rest plus the 2 full minutes that it takes to do a TV timeout.
Right.
He didn't screw it up.
Didn't screw it up. Hang the banner. All right. So I think if we put a combination of some of these players, Mike Redmond certainly, like, let's combine our Mount Rushmores and call it a day here. Mike Redmond's making the list for sure.
Yes. I would love to see. I'm going to pick the next 2 if that's all right.
Yeah,
I would love to see Lou Ford and Chris Walsh on this list.
Yes, I think that's fair.
And then Astudillo to round it out.
I think so.
Yeah, that's a good list. I think that's a good vibe.
I'm sure there's some Wild players we're missing, but I don't know enough about the Wild.
Yeah, whatever.
I think that's our list. Backup catchers, man, they're just fit for this list. I don't know what else to say.
They sure are.
They sure are. That's going to do it. Morning Sports Desk, powered by Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena. We'll see you guys next week.
Powered by Wadena's Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade. Follow the Morning Sports Desk on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And watch every show on YouTube.